We can start now if you like.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, I'll introduce myself.
Yeah.
My name's Ellie. Nice to meet you. I live in San Diego, and I've lived here for like 10 years. I'm not from here, but I went to school here at UCSD. I got my degree in aerospace engineering, and then I went into working for like a defense contractor down here as a systems engineer for a while, and then I went into corporate tech, and I did that for a while, and then I switched to flight training. I started my flight training in March here in San Diego, so that's been great. I love flying here. It's like pretty much perfect. And yeah, I started in March, PPL. I'm end of course, so I'm in an accelerated type of program. I fly out of Montgomery Field, and my school is called Coast Flight Training.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
And so you just started. That's great. And your career transfer. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just kind of like how I was briefing her. This is for entertainment purposes only. We'll try and go through as much as we can. Private mock. We'll do like a little bit of a review, and then as I'm editing the video, I'll go ahead and enter in what we're looking at kind of more in detail so people can follow along. And because that used to frustrate me when I used to watch mocks where like people would say things and I'm like, I don't think that's right, but then there'd be no clarification on whether or not that was like true or not. So I like to edit the videos as we go with like the right information. Okay. So
cool.
Yep, we'll start out. So private qualifications. Are you in a 61 or a 141 program?
61.
Okay. So what makes you eligible to take a private pilot check ride?
Okay, so I need to be 17 years of age or older. I need to be able to read, write, understand, speak the English language. I need to have a student pilot certificate. I need to have a U.S. driver's license. I need to have, at minimum, a third-class medical certificate. I need to have passed my PAR knowledge exam, my written test. I need to have qualified or satisfied all of the aeronautical experience requirements for like flight hours and instruction. And I think I said student pilot certificate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy if you got this far with notes. Someone would be getting fired if you had no student pilot certificate.
And of course.
So as far as like the hour requirements and go, what things in particular do you have to accomplish?
Okay, so you have to do 40 total hours. 20 of those need to be dual instruction. You have to have 10 hours of solo flight, 5 hours of solo cross-country time. You need to have 10 takeoffs and landings at night. You need to have at least 1 cross-country at night. 3 hours of simulated instrument time. I think I'm missing something, but I could look in the
There might be something, so where do you go?
Figure that out. I go to FAR 61, 1, let me look.
Yep.
61-109, I think. Let me double check. It is 109. Heck yeah. Okay. So, for single engine rating, all right. We got 3 hours of cross-country flight. Okay, I think I was missing that. 3 hours of night flight, including 1 cross-country flight over 100 nautical miles, the 10 takeoffs and landings to a full stop at night. And then we need 3 hours of reference to instruments, like a recency, so 3 hours of flight training with an instructor that must have been within the preceding 2 calendar months to the test, 10 hours of solo flight time, 5 hours solo cross-country, and then there's requirements for how far for the cross-country flights themselves, like 150 nautical miles, total distance with full stop landings at 3 points. And then you have to have at least 1 leg, straight leg, 50 nautical miles.
But for that cross country where you have to go to 3 different airports, do they have to have a tower?
Yeah. Yes, because you do have to do the 3 takeoffs. Well,
it should say.
Yes.
What does it say?
Let me just double check really quick. It says full stop landings at 3 points and 3 takeoffs and 3 landings to a full stop at an airport with an operating control tower. So yes.
Okay, nice. Cool. That's pretty good. And then I know there's some, has your CFI ever talked to you about endorsements for private?
Yes.
Like what endorsements you need?
Yeah. You need wait, are we talking about like tailwheel, high performance complex?
No,
or
I'm talking about just
like,
endorsements to take the check.
Oh, okay. So you need an endorsement in order to take your knowledge exam, your written exam. You need an endorsement in order to solo.
What other endorsements were you given throughout flight training?
Let me check my logbook here.
I've done that before, right in the middle of right in the middle of a check ride. I'm like, let me just pull out my logbook and read what it says.
Okay, pre-solo aeronautical knowledge exams. That's my written. Solo flight, my first initial 90 calendar day endorsement. Pre-solo flight training. My solo cross-country flight endorsement. And that looks to be it. And then I have a TSA endorsement.
So
that's it.
Your instructor hasn't actually endorsed you for the check yet, though, right?
Not yet. Yeah. I've got
Okay.
a couple more. I have 2 more flights.
There's a couple things. There's 2 things they got to give you for that.
Probably like signing off that I have completed all the hourly requirements, my aeronautical requirements.
Yeah. There's a.
I can look.
Yeah. It's not like a huge deal. I'm just talking.
Okay. I could probably look it up. Let's see. Eligibility requirements, solo requirements. I feel like there's probably some sort of endorsement requirements. I feel like it's that you have all the hourly requirements completed.
Maybe.
No. Okay.
Maybe.
That's wrong.
Okay.
That's wrong.
No, you're doing very good. Okay, so privileges and limitations. What about that? How does that work? What can you do as a private pilot, and what can't you do?
Okay, as a private pilot, I can fly as pilot in command. I can carry passengers. I can fly for charity events. I can demonstrate aircraft as a salesperson as long as I have 200 total flight hours. I can tow a glider. If I meet the requirements, I can, I can fly myself, like if it's incidental to my business. But some of the limitations are that I can't get compensated for any of those flights.
Okay.
So I can't be hired to fly or be compensated for those.
Okay, so can you give me some examples of compensation that's okay and compensation that's not okay?
Okay, so let's say that I'm flying one of my friends and we're just doing like a fun flight. I ask them to come with me. I want to take them up. If they can pay me the pro rata share of the operating expenses. So we're splitting the cost of the operating expenses, but they can't pay me anything in addition to that. And then another situation would be like, let's say that I have a business and I want to fly myself to a business meeting. I'm technically like getting paid to, like I'm on the clock for my regular job, my salary job, but I'm not getting hired and paid to pilot the plane. I'm just getting myself there.
Yep, that makes sense. So what are some things you can and can't accept payment for if you're going in this scenario with your friend?
Fuel, the cost of renting out the aircraft.
What about a landing fee?
Yeah. A landing fee? Yeah. That's a part of the operating cost, I would say.
Probably, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And what else? Okay. What else can't you do as a private pilot? With just a private pilot, where can't you go?
Just a private pilot, where can't you go?
Where can't you go?
Internationally?
It's a little broad. Think like airspace.
Maybe Alpha?
Probably Alpha, right?
Probably Alpha.
Because you need to have what to get into there?
Oh, you need to have an IFR. You need to be IFR rated.
Yeah, about medicals. What kind of medical do you have?
I have a first class medical.
Okay. And then what are I'm assuming you're under 40. You're definitely under 40. So what are how long is that good for?
So my first class is good for 12 calendar months.
And then what happens?
After the 12 calendar months, then it reverts to a third class medical certificate. I can exercise third class privileges for 48 calendar months.
Okay, cool. What if you were over 40?
If I was over 40, then my first class would only be good for 6 calendar months. And then after that, it would revert to a second class for 6 calendar months. And then it would revert to third class for 12 calendar months for a total of 24.
Okay. So what would be some of the reasons that somebody gets a first versus like a second or a third class?
First class gives you more privileges. So like a third class is the minimum for private pilot, but you, like if you want to be in exercise like ATP privileges, you would need a first class.
Okay. So why would anybody ever end up with a second? What can the people with the second class do?
They can operate commercially, but not ATP. Something like that.
Something like that. Okay. Let's say, let me think about this. I'll ask you a question about second class. So how long is a second class good for over and under 40?
24 for under, 12 for over.
Do you know where to find it? That's
yes,
one. If you don't have that tabbed out, tab that puppy out.
6123.
Tab it out.
Here's my table that gives me exactly what I need to know. Okay, here we go. Under age 40 expires. 60 calendar months. Okay, and then age 40 or over, 24 calendar months. Yeah. If you're using it for private pilot privileges, but if you're using it for ATP or second in command privileges, then for any age regardless, it's 12 calendar months.
Okay. So how does basic med work, and who can get that?
Basic med is for people who maybe have previously held a third class or first class, second class medical certificate, but they're no longer eligible for some reason. But they can still operate an aircraft with certain limitations. So, do you want me to run through those?
Yeah, sure, why not? If you're offering.
All right, so, yeah. Dang it. Let's do that. Okay, so the basic med limitations are that you can only carry 6 passengers, so you can operate an aircraft that has a maximum of 7 total seat capacity. So that's 6 passengers, including yourself as the pilot. The aircraft has to have a max takeoff weight of 12,500. It can't go above 18,000 feet in altitude. Max airspeed 250 knots.
You're aware of how basic med recently changed?
Yeah, it changed the takeoff weight. It was previously like 6,500, and now it's, or 6,000, and then it changed to 12,500. Right?
Yeah, the weight changed, and also the number of people changed.
Passengers. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it changed. It increased. Both of them increased. So it went from 6,000 to 12,500 for weight, and then I'm pretty sure the passenger situation, I can't remember what it was before, but the updated one should be 6 passengers and 7 total seats.
Okay. Sorry, so if someone has basic med, what do they have to do to, like, keep that?
They have to have a exam with a doctor or a physician every 48 calendar months, and then they also have to undergo online education every 24 calendar months. Okay,
and then let's say, what are the things that you would need to be in a plane, and, like if you were to get ramp checked, what are they going to ask you for?
Your driver's license, your basic medical certificate. Probably a signed sheet. Like you have to get kind of like, this is not the right word, but like a permission slip, basically, that's from like the education that proves that you. Yeah, it's not the right terminology, but like proof that you completed the education and you completed the requirements.
Okay, cool. And what else? What are we on to next? What's the difference between like a special issuance and a soda?
I don't know what that is.
You're not sure? You don't know? You've never heard of that? You've never heard a statement of demonstrated ability or a special issuance
No.
for med? Okay, that's something to look into.
Okay, I heard of a special medical certificate, but I think that's what it's called. But I've never heard of soda.
Okay, those two are important. So what are we on to?
You said soda, and then what was the other one?
A special issuance.
Okay. And those are both in relation to medicals?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll meet people with both. So with so documents required to exercise private pilot privileges, what do you got to have with you?
All right. I need to have my government issued photo ID. I need to have my pilot certificate, and I need to have my medical.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to go on to airworthiness. So what documents do you need to have on board the plane for it to be airworthy?
All right. So we need to have, for the plane that I fly, we have a G1000. So I have to have my supplemental G1000 manual on board. I know, right? I love that. So my supplemental G1000 manual needs to be on board. I need to have my placards according to my POH or for any inoperative equipment. I need to have my airworthiness certificate, my registration, my operating limitations, and my weight and balance. And then, yeah, if I'm flying internationally, I need a radio license.
So for the radio license, how do you, like, not necessarily how do you get one, but radio license for what?
For flying internationally?
Yeah, so like
a radio
do you need who needs the license? Or not the license, it is a license.
The aircraft to be like a permit. I don't know.
Not
honestly.
sure. Okay.
I thought about not saying that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you anyways, but okay. So
okay.
this is all like stuff, like good stuff. And then for the weight and balance for what? Is that the weight and balance you bring into the plane?
No, that's the weight and balance from the AFM. It's specific to the tail number of the aircraft that I'm actually flying.
Okay, so where normally does that live?
It lives there's like a binder that has all of the information that's printed out, or it could potentially be maybe in the maintenance logs. The AFM is where we're getting it from.
So you're right. It's specific to every plane, right? But if you don't bring the maintenance binder with you on every flight, right? Right. Yeah, and the maintenance it should be in what you're talking about. Okay. What else do you have to be airworthy?
I have to make sure that all of the inspections have been completed for the aircraft.
So so you mentioned the G1000 supplement, right? But what are some other supplements that would be in that binder? Have you ever opened the binder?
Yeah.
Yeah. They should be all in there. There should be a couple of supplements. Why do we even have supplements? Well, that's a better question. Why do we have supplements?
In case something goes wrong with the specific system that is supplemental to the aircraft, I can have information about, I can look up information specific to that system.
The reason we have, did your plane originally come with the G1000 in it? Or did they put that in there?
I believe when we purchased it, it already had the G1000.
It already had the G1000. So you would also need a supplement for anything that wasn't originally installed in the plane. So if you took out the transponder, right, and you put a new one in, you would need anything that's altered on the plane, you would need a supplement for. What else? So What else has to be followed for your plane to be airworthy?
We have to make sure we have the required equipment on board for day or night flight.
What about ADs?
What's that?
I said, what about ADs?
Oh yeah, we have to make sure that the ADs are complied with, for
so
sure, and the inspections.
How do you find what the ADs are for the plane?
Those are in the maintenance logs. There's also a database that we can search to make sure that everything that's relevant to our plane is complied with is in the maintenance logs, is what's also has been issued.
So what's the difference between an AD and an SAIB?
They're both issued by the FAA, but ADs are mandatory and SAIBs are recommended or just more informational.
Do they require mandatory compliance?
ADs do, not SAIBs.
Okay. So have you ever been to the website and put the name of the plane in?
No.
I would recommend it if you haven't ever been, because I could ask you like, what's the name like of the website? Like, where do you? Okay, so like, great, we know there's a website that we should go to, but know the name of the website. If you don't, maybe you do. I'm not sure.
I probably would go to the FAA website, and then I should be able to find the database from there.
Okay. Well, you're kind of going on to documents that have to be on the plane. Where does the airworthiness and the registration have to be?
They have to be visible to passengers.
Both of them?
The airworthiness does.
The registration doesn't?
I'm not aware of any requirement for that.
Okay. And then as far as, you kind of know where I'm getting with this, but what are the dates for the things? How often do they have to be checked or renewed?
Inspections?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so registration expires every 7 years, and then going into the inspections, so we have to have an annual inspection every 12 calendar months. We have to have our VOR checked every 30 days. That's only for IFR flight. We need to have a 100-hour inspection. Since my plane is operated for instruction, it also needs a 100-hour. And then we also need our altimeter and static system to be checked every 24 calendar months. That's also for IFR only flight. And then we need our transponder every 24 calendar months and our ELT. That needs to be inspected every 12 calendar months, and that needs to be like either recharged or replaced after an hour of cumulative use or 1/2 the battery's useful life.
As far as the ELT, when does that not become a mandatory thing?
When does it not become a mandatory thing?
It's not always. You can go up for a flight in your area and the ELT not be working as long as it's been logged as an operative.
Oh.
There's a little caveat on that. The ELT isn't always required. Okay, cool. We talked about that. Okay, special flight permit. Special blah blah blah. Special flight permit. How do you get one of those? Why do they matter?
Okay, a special flight permit would probably be issued if, like, let's say, something happens where I no longer have one of my required equipment operational, and I need to get I need to get my plane out of the situation that it's in. So, but I can't because it's not technically legal, like airworthy to fly anymore. I would contact the FSDO and I would ask for a special flight permit so that I could just ferry the flight back to a maintenance facility and get it fixed.
Okay. And then can you, if you have like 98 hours on the aircraft, but it's going to take 3 hours to get it back to wherever your flight school does maintenance, can you just take it there? Because how many hours can you go over? What's like how there's...
You can, yeah, I know what you're getting at. You can overfly the 100-hour by 10 hours, as long as it's for that specific reason. It's not just like, I can overfly the 10 whenever I want. It's for the specific purpose of something like a special flight permit or getting it to a maintenance facility.
Okay, so can you, if you're let's say you're going to go up for, I don't know, that's probably a bad example. Let's say the plane is at another airport that's not your home airport, and they need it to come back to your home airport to have the inspection done, and it's got 98 hours on it, but it's going to take 3 hours to get there. Can you just go from that airport to the airport to get the inspection done without applying for a permit? Because you're within the 10 hours?
I don't think so. I think you still need the special flight permit.
Okay. So how does PIC responsibility differ between the owner and the operator of the aircraft?
In terms of, like, the owner-operator is responsible for keeping the aircraft in airworthy condition, but the PIC, the pilot in command, is responsible for ensuring that the aircraft is airworthy before every flight.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you mean? Okay.
That's good. What about preventative maintenance? Where do you go to find the list of things that you can or can't do?
I go to Part 43, Appendix A, preventative maintenance.
So is there like a list of things there?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you find some of those things?
Sure. Let's see. Here we go. Where's my appendix? Oh, here it is. Okay. Major preventative maintenance. All right, so I can do removal, installation, and repair of landing gear tires, replace elastic shock absorber cords on landing gear, and service landing gear shock struts. I can replace defective safety wiring or cotter keys. There's a lot of stuff here.
There's a lot of stuff, right? Okay.
30 things.
That's good. I really just care about you being able to, because some people just memorize a regulation, but I want to be able to see that, like, you can actually go to it and find it and use what you have. Okay, so because there's kind of two different parts in the FARM where they have stuff about preventative maintenance. One of those things is a dead end, and one of them has all the answers. So if you have the wrong one, do you know what I'm talking about? If you've ever looked for that,
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Part 43. It says preventative maintenance, but then if you don't look in the right appendix, and the right part of that appendix, then you could just like read the whole thing and never get to it. Yeah.
So equipment requirements for day and night VFR. Okay, so you find something that's inoperative on the aircraft. So just walk me through the flow.
Yeah. Okay. So that's going to be the first thing I would probably do, honestly, to make sure I didn't miss anything, is I would just go to 91.213 to make sure that I check all the boxes for my inoperative flow. Okay. So I want to make sure that, let's see, we don't have an MEL. We have a KOEL. So I'm going to skip all the stuff that's about the MEL. And then here we go.
Do you know what an MEL stands for?
Minimum equipment list.
Okay.
All right. So we need to make sure that the inoperative equipments are not a part of the requirement for day and night required equipments. Then we need to make sure that it is not listed on or listed as required on the kinds of equipment list, kinds of operations equipment list in our POH. We need to make sure that it's not required by any AD. And then if it's not required by any of those things, then we need to placard it we need to deactivate it and then placard it as inoperative. And then we can fly.
Okay.
And we need to log it in the maintenance log.
Yeah, that's got to happen too. So do you have anything under your KOEL?
Yeah.
I'm curious, just what does your KOEL say?
Let's see. Let me bring it up.
Is your KOEL 91205?
That's a good question. Let's see. There's a lot more stuff. Let's see. VFR day, VFR night.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious to see if your KOEL actually has, if it's actually a KO, like, is there actually stuff there that's individual to your plane, or does it just say you need to go to 91,205?
In the beginning, it says the 91, but then it has like
it has stuff
like a table.
Okay,
yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah. What are some things you can be inoperative that you can go out in the day for?
Our transponder.
Okay, what class airspace do you fly out of?
Delta. Well, I could, at my airspace, I could not do that because we're in the mode CVAL.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. Yeah. So what else can be inoperative that you can go without?
For VFR day,
mm-hmm.
Our landing light could be out. Our
Isn't there
position in nav.
Is there something in there about for hire?
For VFR day, I know for VFR night, the landing light is only for hire. For VFR day, I'm pretty sure everything's required.
Okay.
I can double check.
Yeah, and just give me some more examples of things that can be broken.
Okay. So landing lights. Let's see. Position and nav lights. Let's see. What else could be broken? All that's coming to mind are the things on the list that are required.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, so I need to stop saying so. Okay, I say so too much in my videos.
Alternate static source. Okay, I'm just looking at the list. I'm looking at my KOEL here, and I'm seeing things that are listed here that aren't required, and I can just list those, like alternate static air source, not required.
Okay. What about an attitude indicator? Do you need one of those?
Attitude indicator, that's not required.
Okay. Will you go fly without one?
Me personally, probably not.
Probably not, yeah.
No, I would not.
What kind of like standby instruments do you guys have?
We just have, so in my plane, we just have the airspeed, vertical speed, and altitude.
Okay. That's not terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving on. What about weather? I love weather.
Ooh, everyone's favorite.
I love weather. Okay. I want to have you read stuff. I'm just not sure how to record it. We'll just start with theory. We'll just do weather theory first. So, all right, weather. Talk to me, and I'm literally just going line by line in the ACS. So we'll look at the charts and stuff maybe potentially later. Maybe we won't have time for it. Maybe we will. But for atmospheric composition and stability, what's our atmosphere made out of?
It's made out of.
And can you give me the percentage breakdown?
Honestly, no.
Honestly, no. Okay.
That's probably like the lowest thing on my list.
Lowest thing
that I memorize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what is stability when we talk about stability in the atmosphere, and why do we care?
Okay. Stability, as it relates to the atmosphere, is just it resisting vertical change. So like as you go up higher, it's resisting like drastic changes in atmosphere, in temperature, pressure, things like that. And we care because the more unstable the atmosphere, then the greater the weather is going to be. So there's going to be higher winds, like bad things like cumulonimbus clouds, thunderstorms, things like that.
Okay. What kinds of things do you need for a thunderstorm?
You need high moisture, a lifting force, and unstable air.
So what would be an indicator of unstable air?
An unstable lapse rate. So if you check like,
so what is a
just
stable lapse rate?
2 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet. So that as you go higher, the temperature, every 1,000 feet, the temperature decreases by 2 degrees Celsius.
Okay. So then what did you say you were going to check for instability?
You could check the winds and temperature aloft.
Okay.
Charts.
Okay. Cool. What else was I going to ask? So when we're talking about wind, do you guys have any kind of, like, you're not by any mountains or anything, are you?
We are. Like, where we fly out to our east practice area, there's a mountain range out there.
Okay. What kind of stuff do you guys worry about with winds?
I would worry about, mountain wave turbulence.
Okay. So how do you avoid that?
You could stay away from the mountains. You could just go.
Where are you supposed to be?
Hmm?
What side? Where are you supposed to be when you're trying to avoid mountain wave turbulence?
Oh, okay. I want to say the upwind side.
Okay. I mean, I live in Florida, so microbursts are kind of like, I mean, I've never flown through one, but they're talked about a lot. So what are some things about a microburst that you should know as a pilot?
They can cause like velocities of 6,000 feet per minute or more, like super strong changes in
how do you identify a microburst?
Well, they usually come after a thunderstorm, like in the dissipating stage of a thunderstorm. I'm trying to think if there's any visual indicators, like maybe Virga could be an indicator of a microburst.
So how long do they usually last for?
Like 5 to 15 minutes.
Okay. And then if you are on final and you fly through a microburst, how are you going to know that you're in one? What kinds of things are you going to experience?
Major turbulence, wind shear, low-level wind shear.
There's some like defining factors here about flying through a microburst, and then what do you do if you get caught in one?
Okay. Flying through a microburst. I mean, the major thing that's coming to mind is just the wind changing direction and velocity. Mm-hmm. And then if you get caught in one, you're going to want to turn around, make a 180 and get out of there.
Okay. That's microburst and like flying. If what happens, how do you identify that you're in one and what do you do if you're in one? That's something to look at. So you kind of brought up wind shear. What is wind shear?
Mm-hmm. That's a change in wind velocity or direction over a small concentrated area.
Do you know about how much in change in direction or how much in velocity?
No.
Not sure. Okay. I'll go a little bit more into weather theory. So what is the source of all weather?
The sun heating of the Earth's surface.
Okay. So but how does that cause changes in weather?
So, when the sun heats up the Earth's surface, it happens unevenly. So that can cause, when the sun heats up the surface of the Earth, then that is going to heat up the air directly above it. And so that's going to cause that air that warms up to want to rise. And then as it rises, it cools. And so that's going to want to sink. And then it's creating these like convective wind currents. So that's one way that winds get created. And then that's also like temperatures have to do with humidity. So when there's more humidity in the air, then that's where clouds can start to form as we reach the dew point. The water vapor condenses and then creates clouds.
Okay. And then, slow down there.
Okay.
So when we're talking about, you're talking about that the Earth's surface is heated unequally. You're not wrong, but why does that happen?
There's a lot of factors. It can happen partly because of the Earth's tilt. So how direct the sun is on the surface. It can happen unevenly because of the type of surface that's being heated. So whether it's water or land, whether it's even the color of the surface, like if it's a darker color that can absorb more heat than lighter surfaces.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
a lot of factors that can go into that.
Okay. So are you familiar with the Coriolis force?
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that do?
That creates, so the equator moves, okay, let me think about this. So because of the Earth's tilt, how do I describe this? Basically causes a shift in the air to move east because of, I'm trying to remember if it's because of...
so in the northern hemisphere, which way does the Coriolis force direct air?
Eastward, from west to east.
Okay. And how does that change depending on where you are? So if you were in the southern hemisphere, does it also deflect air to the east?
No, it's opposite. Yeah. And then I think there's something about the equator and how it moves faster at the equator. So you kind of get like, as it goes up and over,
so
it moves quicker in some areas.
You're kind of leading on to my next thing here. So if you're at the equator versus if you're at the poles, how does the Coriolis force change?
It's going to move the air is going to move faster the closer you are to the equator. Wait. Yeah. It is. It's like a propeller. Like the end of the propeller moves faster than the root of the propeller. The root is like the pole and the end is like the equator. So the equator moves, near the equator it moves faster.
Okay. That's our masses in front. So just start out real easy. So how does a high pressure versus a low pressure system move?
Sure. Low pressure system moves up, in, and counterclockwise.
Okay.
And then a high pressure system is opposite of that. So that's going to be moving downwards, outwards, and clockwise.
Okay, cool. Pressure system is stable and what's not stable?
A high pressure system is going to be more stable than the low pressure system. So we'll have better weather with a high versus a low.
Okay. And then when we're talking about cold and warm fronts, so what happens in a cold front versus what happens in a warm front?
A cold front is where a mass of cold air kind of moves. It's fast moving, so it's going to move and push a body of warmer air out of the way. So it kind of like gets under it and pushes it up and out, and that's that lifting force. That's why there's worse weather associated with them, because it has that kind of violent lifting action. And then with a warm front, you have a slower moving body of warm air that kind of like comes over the top of a colder body of air and traps it underneath, creating like it moves over the top, creating.
How does, for a warm front, how does that warm body of air trap the cold air?
Because cold air wants to stay, so it stays low.
Okay. So what about the properties of cold air makes it want to stay low?
It's more dense.
Oh, okay. What about different kinds of weather associated with warm and cold fronts?
A warm front is going to bring more steady precipitation. It's going to have poor visibility because of that trapping situation, like any pollutants or things that's going to get trapped will have kind of like widespread gray. Let's see. It's going to be like better flying conditions in terms of turbulence, like less winds. And then for
do you know about the wind speeds for fronts?
I think warm front is like 5 to 10 knots or something pretty low, and cold front is I think 20 plus knots.
Okay, you're kind of there. Just like look at that one more time. What else? You talked about what about the kind of precipitation for a cold front?
That's going to be more showery precipitation, so not as steady.
Okay. Why is it showery?
It's because the winds, well, okay, let me think about this. So, yeah, so it's got to be because of the winds, and like the air is moving very quickly, so it's like cycling through the cycles.
Cycling through
are
the
happening
cycles.
quicker. So, yeah, the cycles are cycling faster. So, like a rain cloud.
So you know about the different
like,
stages of a thunderstorm?
Yeah.
What are those?
Cumulus stage, the mature stage, and the dissipating stage.
So what do you get in all of those?
And the cumulus stage, that's when the storm's starting to form, and you have primarily updrafts, and that's when those cumulonimbus clouds start to form. And then in the mature stage, that's when precipitation starts. That starts pushing the air down, so you have a combination of updrafts and downdrafts. And then in the dissipating stage, you have primarily downdrafts, and this when the thunderstorm is starting to weaken.
Okay. When I think about what I want to ask, or how I want to ask this, how do you know that the mature stage has started?
Precipitation.
Okay. With cold fronts, people often talk about that there's better visibility with cold fronts. Why do they say this?
Mm-hmm. That's because let me think. The air is moving faster, so like there's not really enough time. Like the temperatures are changing quickly, and like the wind is moving quickly, so it's not like really good conditions for fog to form or haze, or it's kind of like blowing that out of the way. Yeah, I think it really mostly just has to do with like how fast moving the air is, and how there's not really time for things to like settle and create those things that can happen with poor visibilities.
Okay, so, but you could go out and fly in a cold front and it could be terrible weather. So how do you know when you're going to get that good weather?
Maybe after the cold front passes, like on the opposite side of the cold front.
Okay. And then what other kind of fronts do we have?
We have stationary fronts and occluded fronts.
Okay, real quick, there's so much more to talk about, but
I know.
Have you ever heard about the difference between a warm and a cold occlusion?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting. So what's the difference between those?
Okay, so essentially you have one front taking over another front. And so like in a cold occlusion, you have a body of I'll say cold air and cool air and warm air. Like those are our three kind of categories of air that are happening. So let's say like we've got a warm front on one side, which we know is warm body of air over a cool body of air. And then a cold occlusion is when a colder body of air comes in and sweeps both of those up because it's colder than both the warm and the cool air. So that's a really bad one because it's like super strong. It's lifting both warm and coldish air up. And then a warm occlusion is that's when you've got, I'm trying to think about this one. I think you have cool air coming in and it's overtaking what's happening here.
Which, are you describing the cold occlusion?
I'm describing a warm occlusion.
Okay.
Now. So in that case, you would have trying to think about what that looks like. Cold. I'm not really sure. I can't remember exactly how to describe the warm occlusion.
Okay, you can brush up on that later.
Yeah, I'll brush up on that one.
Okay, so what's the difference? We talk about like fog and cloud can kind of impact our ability to fly VFR. What's the difference between fog and a cloud?
Fog is more low level, closer to the surface. Well, let's see, because both of them are when the temperature reaches the dew point and the water vapor condenses. Think about what, like maybe one is caused by convection and one is caused by conduction.
It has to do with levels. So if you're not sure, you can. That's just another thing to look at. When we're talking about turbulence, what are like the different kinds of turbulence?
Turbulence, mountain wave turbulence, mechanical turbulence.
You know how there's different levels of turbulence? So like if you're reading like a PIREP or something and you see moderate turbulence or severe turbulence or extreme turbulence, what's the difference between those kinds of turbulence? Like how do moderate and severe they both sound bad, but like what's the difference?
I mean, I'm sure there's differences in like wind speeds and maybe the presence of like wind shear or something, but I don't know the specifics of the
okay
the speeds.
Okay, so when we're talking about icing, what needs to be present for structural icing to happen?
For structural icing to happen, visible moisture.
That's one.
Freezing temperatures on the surface and in the air.
Okay. So what are the different kinds of icing?
Structural, induction, and instrument.
So I'm talking about just the different kinds of, not like airplane icing, but like just the icing, the three different kinds of icing. The ice.
Oh, the different kinds of structural icing? Oh, okay. That's clear, mixed, and rime.
Okay. So what are the differences between clear and rime?
Clear happens when like large super cold water droplets hit a freezing surface. So they kind of like spread out and create a clear, glossy, hard to see, like really heavy layer. And then rime is when you have smaller water droplets that when they hit the surface, they freeze and they trap the air. So it creates kind of like a milky, more frost-like appearance.
Okay, so how they're both, if you ever noticed, with rime icing, it's still super cooled water droplets, right? So what's the difference there? So clear, you said, is large, right? And rime, they're still super cooled. So what is super cooled?
Below freezing.
Okay. Below freezing? Okay.
Do you want like specific degrees?
No, not really.
Okay. I mean, one is the large droplets, one is the small droplets.
Okay.
And one half, yeah.
I just find like people don't actually know what super cooled is. We talk about it a lot, but people don't actually really talk about like what it is. But it's cool. You can look it up. The rime icing, you're saying it's kind of milky. How does it get that appearance?
What's coming to mind is that it's trapping the air, and maybe there's pollutants in the air or things like dust particles or something that's getting trapped in it.
Okay. Then how does aircraft icing affect, this is kind of a little bit more like in performance and limitations, but how does it affect the performance of the plane? When we're talking about getting clear, let's say you get clear ice, what happens?
Yeah. So it's going to add a lot of weight, which means that we're going to have to generate more lift in order to keep the airplane in the sky. So that's also, as a byproduct, going to create more drag. It's going to slow us down. We're going to we're going to have to fly at a higher angle of attack, and we're going to be slower. So we'll have a slower cruise speed, and have a higher stall speed. It's going to be overall worse performance.
Okay. And do you know the temperature difference between like what kinds of like where you would get clear icing or where you would get rime icing?
Yeah, I think I remember this. Clear icing should happen between like 0 to 10 degrees, and then rime happens 0 to 10 degrees, and then I'd have to review that. I think it's 15 to 20 degrees. Sorry, this is negative. This is all negative.
Yeah. Yeah, I was assuming so.
Yeah, okay. You got that. Yeah, okay. And then rime, I have to review it, but I think it's negative 15 to 20.
Okay. And what kinds of, like, if you're flying in like a warm versus a cold front, what kinds of icing are associated with which?
I want to say rime more so in I'm not
sure.
really sure.
Okay.
I want to say rime in warm fronts, and then clear, just because of like the large droplets makes me think of like really heavy showery precipitation. So that would be more cold fronts. So I would think clear and cold, and then conversely, but yeah, okay. I have to review it.
And then we'll talk about we'll talk about fog, and then we will move on. Oh my gosh, yeah, there's one more thing, but real quick, what are the different kinds of fog?
Okay, we've got advection, we've got radiation, steam, and upslope.
Okay, so which ones need wind to form?
Advection, for sure, and upslope.
You guys probably, you get a lot of advection fog, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're probably very familiar with how that works. How does radiation fog work?
Radiation fog is more so over flat land. It happens like on cool, clear, calm nights where the ground is cooled rapidly, and then that cools the air directly above the ground, and then that air gets cooled to the dew point, and that's how it condenses, and that's how the fog forms. Okay,
and then we'll go into, I wonder if airmet sigmets and convective sigmets are in cross-country flight planning. We won't look at the charts because there just isn't enough time, but run me through the differences between a convective sigmet and a sigmet.
Okay. Convective sigmets are going to be specific to convective activity, so things like thunderstorms, lightning, hail, like large hail, wind shear, microbursts, virga. And then sigmet is things that restrict visibility, so like volcanic ash, dust, sandstorms, and then you have like moderate to severe winds, icing, like moderate to severe icing. Yeah, the main difference is just the convective activity versus like normal hazards.
So there's, in one of those categories, you have surface winds. Do you know how many knots?
I believe it's 30 plus for sigmets. I have to review.
Okay, sure. And then for convective, so what about the hours for those?
All right, the hours. So yeah, convective sigmets are valid for 2 hours, and regular sigmets are valid for 4 hours.
You said convective is 2 and sigmet is 4? Or what'd you say?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about hurricanes?
Yeah, that's right. Oh man, it keeps cutting out. Sorry, what'd you say?
It's okay. What about hurricanes?
Hurricanes? What about them?
What category are they in, and how does the hour requirement change?
I don't know.
Not sure. Okay, just look it up. And convective.
Okay.
So can I get some more stuff on what a convective segment's issued for? Like specifics? Because we know it's convective activity, right? But what things would they be issued for?
Thunderstorms, lightning, hail greater than 3/4 inch diameter, tornadoes, super high surface winds that I have to check the speeds for. Yeah.
So there's some more specifics under convective segment for thunderstorms. Do you know any of those?
More specifics for thunderstorms.
Yeah, there's like specifics. Certain kinds of thunderstorms, area of thunderstorms, line of thunderstorms. There's some.
Oh, are you talking about like embedded versus widespread versus?
I'm not really talking about like one versus another. There's just like a list of you're not wrong with thunderstorms, but there's more specifics requirements for when a convective segment would be issued. But it's okay, we can move on. Cross-country flight planning, obviously there is nothing to review. There's no like navlog or anything.
Yeah.
So we'll just go through just the what are you looking at when you're planning a cross-country flight?
I'm looking at the different waypoints that I'm going to select. So making sure that there's like some sort of visual indicator for me in case I lose my GPS or my iPad. I'm looking at the winds. I'm looking at the pressure altitude for my airport of departure and airport of arrival.
So what specific thing? Like I don't mean to cut you off, but like what specific things are you looking at when you're planning a cross-country flight?
I look at the weather. So I get a weather briefing. I look at the NOTAMs. I look at, I familiarize myself with the airspaces. I look at the weight and balance requirements for my, like the fuel reserves requirements. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yep.
Like
yeah.
Craft stuff? Okay, cool. Yeah, takeoff and landing distances and, like my runway lengths for all airports that I plan to land at and my alternates and
there's one more.
Any known ATC delays.
Okay. And then what are the fuel requirements for night and day?
For day, I need to have at least 30 minutes of reserve fuel, and for night, it has to be 45.
Okay. And do you know about the different kinds of NOTAMs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what are the most kind of common ones that you would come across?
The most common ones that I would see are going to be D NOTAMs or FDC NOTAMs.
Okay, so what would be like an example of a D NOTAM?
If there's a runway closure, things that are very like specific to the airport.
Okay, what about an FDC NOTAM?
That's going to be more so like TFR, temporary flight restrictions. I think there's some things with like IFR flight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about those specifically, like more so TFRs for me.
Okay. And, oh man, I had something and I lost it. And when you're picking a cruising altitude, how do you do that?
I'm picking based off of my heading. So like that, making sure that I follow the rules between like if I'm between 0 and 179 or 180 to 359. So for example, like my typical cross country that I do, I'm mostly on an easterly heading. So in that case, I would need to pick an altitude that is an odd 1,000 plus 500. So I'd pick something like 5,500.
Okay.
And then I'm also taking into consideration like obstacles, terrain, things like that.
Okay. Do you know how to file a VFR flight plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it on, you can do it with a flight service station. So you can do it actually on the 1-800-WXBrief.com, or you can do it in ForeFlight too. That's a legal way to do it.
Okay. So let's say you're going on a cross country, right? And you file a VFR flight plan. How are you going to activate that?
You have to call. Who do you call? I can't remember if it's. You do have to call like after you take off and ask to activate it.
Can you activate it on the ground?
I'm pretty sure you're supposed to activate it. I remember reading something about having to activate it after takeoff, but I've never actually done it, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Don't tell your DPE you've never filed a VFR flight plan. They're gonna I think that's because you're technically supposed to do that during training. Like, actually, have you ever simulated it or?
Is it the same thing as like flight following?
No.
Is that
different?
Okay. No.
So, and then my other follow-up question is, what is the purpose of a VFR flight plan?
That would be like to make sure that you make it to your destination. So if you get lost or something and you don't close the flight plan, then they know to send out search and rescue for you.
And how long do you have to close it out before they give you a call?
30 minutes.
Okay. If you've never done it before, just do it at least once so you kind of like know how. And it's especially like if you want to get to CFI, you're depending on where you go, like for training and stuff, create a navigation plan and simulate filing a VFR flight plan it's written in the ACS. It's supposed to be a part of generally during like private training. So if you haven't ever done it before, just do it once so you have an idea of all the different ways you can actually activate it and close it. And then when you get to CFI, if you've never done it, it does make it a little difficult how to teach somebody how to do it if you're not sure how. We'll move off of cross-country flight planning just because we're not really looking at a flight plan. And then as far as airspace goes, we could start off
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll start off with VFR Weathermans. So you said you fly in a Delta, right? So what are the VFR Weathermans for the Delta?
We have to have 3 statute miles visibility, and then for cloud clearances, it has to be 1,000 feet above, 500 feet below, and then 2,000 feet horizontally from clouds.
Okay, and then how does that change based off of night?
It doesn't.
It doesn't?
For class Delta.
Okay. So what you just said for Delta, what other airspace does that apply to for VFR Weathermans?
That applies to class Charlie, and class Echo below 10,000 feet MSL.
Okay, and then if you're an Echo above 10,000, how does that change?
Then the minimums are 5 statute miles visibility, and then you need 1,000 feet above and below, and 1 statute mile horizontally.
Okay, and then what else is up there in that above 10,000 category?
Class Golf. Wait. Yeah. Yeah.
Class Golf above 10,000?
Yeah.
What about Class B?
Class B, so that's going to be 3 statute miles visibility, and then you have to be clear of clouds.
Okay. Going kind of like into the gross part of talking about Echo and Golf. So you can, whichever one first.
Okay, but what's the question?
So what are the VFR Weathermans for Echo and Golf?
Oh, got you. Okay. Yeah.
I know,
okay.
gross.
So
nobody wants to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll start I'm going to start with night. So night below 1,200 feet AGL actually just up to 10,000 feet MSL, essentially, is 3 statute miles visibility, 1,000 above, 500 below, 2,000 horizontal for night, for class golf. For daytime, if you're below 1,200 feet AGL, that's going to be 1 statute mile visibility and clear of clouds. And then for daytime class golf, above 1,200 feet AGL, but below 10,000 feet MSL, that's going to be 1 statute mile visibility, and then your basic cloud clearance, which is the 1,000 above, 500 below, 2,000 horizontally. And then above 10,000 feet MSL is 5 statute miles, 1,000 above, 1,000 below, and 1 statute mile horizontally.
Okay. If you're flying into a Bravo, what kind of equipment do you need?
You need a mode C transponder. You need ADS-B out. You need 2-way radio capabilities. You need an explicit clearance. You have to hear clear through the Bravo. If you're a student pilot, you need an endorsement from your instructor. I think that's it.
Okay. With, I think you would get that out of my other question too. Have you ever heard of an SFRA?
Yes. Special Flight Rules Area.
Where would one of those be?
A good example is Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Okay. What are some kinds of special use airspace? Do you have any around you?
Yeah, we have restricted around us. We also, since we're at a coast, we also have warning areas.
Is there anything you're concerned about if you're in a warning area?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's probably going to be like military activity that's dangerous for civilian aircraft, especially GA aircrafts.
Can you go in a warning area?
Yeah, you can, but it's not advised.
It's not who says you can't go in one?
No, you can go in
You
one.
can.
It's based on the controlling agency, so you could ask the ATC ahead of time or ask the controlling agency.
Okay. Do you know that warning areas can be active?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
I mean, warning areas restrict. Yeah, like a lot of those military kind of operations areas and like restricted areas and stuff, they have active hours, which is why you want to check with the controlling agency before you technically can fly in those areas, but you want to check to make sure that you're not going in when there's hazardous activities.
If you went in a warning area when it was active, would you get in any kind of trouble?
Yeah, I think you need permission for the warning area.
Okay. And then what about like an MOA? What about, can you go through one of those when it's active? And would you get in trouble if you went through one if it was active?
You can go through that and you won't get in trouble, but that would not be recommended.
Not recommended? Okay. Going through like a prohibited and a restricted area?
Prohibited? No, you can't even get permission to go through that. You just stay clear of that. Restricted, that one, again, if it's active, you cannot go through that. You could get permission. You could try to get permission with the controlling agency, but definitely check to see when the active hours are and see when just get the advice from the controlling agency.
Okay, I think what I want to do is I want to pull up SkyVector. First thing I'm going to start off with, you see this 04? It's right in the middle of the screen.
Oh, yeah. I see that.
What is this and how do they get this number?
That's an altitude of the highest terrain in the area.
Okay, so how do they come up with the number? Is the highest obstacle in the area 400 feet?
Yeah, that's what I would imagine. Yes.
Do you know what the name of this is?
No.
Okay. Let's go over here. You see this this blue guy with it's like a circle and then there's spikes on it. And there's like 15, 18, 21. What's this in reference to?
That's a VOR.
Okay.
The radials for a VOR.
Do you know what this is called? What the actual circle is called?
No.
Okay. This, you know what they're talking about, a VOR, right? Like it just says Seal Beach right there. Do you know where the VOR is?
At the center of this circle.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's like really close to where your cursor is, right to the left where that circle is.
Okay.
That like right next to the runway.
Got it. Man, there's a lot of crazy looking airspace in here. Let me try and zoom out, but not be super dramatic. So let's say you see this like Signal Peak area right here.
Hold on, I'm trying to find your cursor.
Right there, Signal Peak.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so let's say, how does this airspace work from the ground up?
Okay, so it's going to be golf from the surface to 700 feet, and then at 700 it goes into class Echo up until 3,000, not up to and not including 3,500. Then at 3,500 it goes to Charlie. Then after 4,400 it goes back to Echo. Yeah, because there's no Bravo. Okay, back to Echo, and then above 18,000, or 18,000 and above is Alpha.
Okay, let's say we're moving over here, and you see the San Mateo Canyon Wilderness area?
Yes.
So that's a kind of airspace, right? What do they say about that airspace?
Yeah, that's like a wilderness preservation area, and it's recommended to fly 2,000 feet above that.
What happens if you don't?
Nothing.
Nothing happens? You might get a fine.
Oh, really?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. I thought it was just recommended.
Yeah, no, it is. So let's say that we're in the ground over here at this wilderness area. What airspace are we in?
At the ground in the wilderness, that would be. I want to say golf.
And to what altitude?
1,200.
Okay, and then what are you in?
Echo.
Okay. Let's go over a weird area. You see this this purple dashed line? What airspace is that?
That looks like a Class Echo surface extension.
Okay. Do you know why they have those?
Okay. That's usually to help out with IFR traffic, so it lets them have jurisdiction over the airspace from the surface. So it's not just like uncontrolled Gulf airspace, and can kind of help with, maybe it's like an inbound route for an airport or something where there's going to be a lot of IFR traffic.
Okay. You see the star at the top of this airport. What is this telling you?
The beacon, where the beacon is.
Okay. And then we'll read this air park information. So it's Fallbrook Community Air Park. And then you can take the rest of that from there.
Okay. Automated weather observation system. Oh, 3P. I have to double check on my sectional what the 3P means, but the frequency is for the AWOS is the 118.425. Let me just check to see what that 3P might mean.
It's probably not going to tell you if you're, I don't know where you're looking, but it might not tell you.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking in the legend for this kind of section, but yeah, and it doesn't look like there's anything.
I don't think it's there. The 711, what's that?
That's the elevation of the airport.
Okay, and then the star next to the L?
That tells us that there's part-time runway lighting available, pilot-operated runway lighting.
Okay, so if you were going to this air park and you were going to go there at night, how would you control the lights?
You click the radio button, depending on what intensity you want.
Okay, so
between 3 and 7 clicks.
Okay, so there's how many kinds of intensity are there?
There's light, medium, and intense.
Do you know the number of clicks?
Yeah, 3, 5, and 7.
Okay. And then the 2-1, what's that?
That's the length of the longest runway.
Okay. I think you would get the rest of that. Let's go somewhere else. Do you know what the yellow is?
That's going to tell you where there's a lot of buildings. So it kind of stands for light, like where you can expect to see light from buildings and just like congested area.
Okay. You see this purple dashed line? What's that?
That is an isogonic line.
Okay. And how much variation do we have here?
11 degrees to the east.
Okay. And then do you know what the line is called of no variation?
Agonic.
Okay. Let's zoom out of here. You see this VR1266?
Yeah.
What's that?
That's a military training route.
Okay. And then do you know about the height of the airways?
Yes, because there's 4 digits there, that means that they're going to be operating below 1,500 feet.
Okay. You know what airspace this airport's in?
There we go. Okay. That's Echo. Oh, sorry. Actually, no, it's technically Golf from the surface to 700, and then it's Echo.
Okay. Do you know what a tersa looks like?
Yeah, if you go over to Palm Springs, it's like south from where you are, and then east.
Box, yeah.
Yes.
What else? Do you know what this little flag is? This flag?
It's a VFR waypoint.
Okay. Do you know what this is? What this means? The purple circle with the X through it?
I think that means an airport that's like no longer in service, but I'd have to check.
Okay.
Yeah, abandoned airport or runway.
Trying to find more fun things. Can't find a lot of fun things. You know what this is called, right?
Oh yeah, it's a VOR DME. Or no, it's not DME. That's just a VOR TAC, I think.
Okay. What would a VOR with DME look like?
That would have a box around it.
Okay. Do you know who uses a vortex?
No, I want to say military, but I don't know.
Okay. Can we use a vortex?
I want to say yeah, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. Okay. I think that's good enough for now. Are you familiar with the PAVE checklist?
Yeah.
What's that?
That's going to be a checklist that I would use before every flight just to make sure that I'm covering my bases and am good to go. Like to make my go or no-go decision, basically. That's what I would run through. So I would start with P, which is for pilot, and I would run through my I'm safe checklist to assess myself. And I would make sure I have my required documents on me.
Okay. And then just running through some of those acronyms real quick. Do you know what I'm safe stands for?
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's going to be illness, medication, stress, alcohol and drugs, fatigue, and emotions and eating.
Okay. You just brought up I'm safe, right? No, wait. We just went through that. PAVE. So we've got pilot. What's after that?
Aircraft.
Okay. And what about VE?
V is environment, and E is external pressures.
Okay. Are you familiar with the hazardous attitudes?
Yes.
Okay. What are those?
That's going to be impulsivity. So, do it now, do it quickly. And then your antidote for that is going to be not so fast, think first. You've got macho, which is I can do it. And the antidote for that is going to be follow the rules. They're there for a reason. Or taking chances is foolish. Then you've got, anti-authority. Don't tell me what to do. That one's follow the rules. They're there for a reason. And then invulnerability. It won't happen to me. Antidote is could happen to me. And then the last one is resignation, which is what's the use? And the antidote is I can make a difference.
Okay. For performance and limitations, I think that's what's next. How does the weather affect the plane's ability to fly?
So, a big thing is going to be temperature, because in warmer temperatures, the air is less dense. So it's going to perform at a higher density altitude, which is worse performance. So you're going to have longer takeoff, rolls, longer landing distances, or not landing distances, longer takeoff rolls, worse climb performance. Yeah, that's a big one, is temperature. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to mention for weather.
How does your landing and ground roll change?
Well, so that makes me think of it, if you have a tailwind, you're going to have a longer ground roll on your landing.
Okay. And so what are things that you have to be concerned about when you're somewhere with a higher density altitude?
Your climb performance, like how, if you can climb out past any obstacles that are in the way, if you have a long enough runway, so if whatever your required takeoff distance is, like, will you even be able to make that? Those are like the big things.
Okay. And then when you're at a high density altitude, you mentioned that the air density is lower. How do your airspeeds change?
Well, you have to fly faster in order to create the same amount of lift. So, that makes me think that you're going to have a higher stall speed.
So wait,
yeah, I think that's...
Wait, so we're going to have a higher stall speed because we're at a higher altitude?
Oh no, sorry. Stall speed doesn't, or angle of attack doesn't change with altitude. It's more so, let's see, how do I want to describe this?
So how does your indicated and true airspeed change based off of a higher density altitude?
Oh, okay. Well, your true airspeed is going to decrease. Wait. Less density. No. It increases. Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, I know it's
Let
weird.
me think about this. I know I hate these ones that are like in the inverses. It always gets me mixed up. But if I think about it logically, okay, you're at a higher altitude, the air is less dense. Mm-hmm. That means you have to fly at a higher airspeed in order to create the same amount of lift. So that tells me that your true airspeed, which is how fast you are flying through the air, would be higher at a higher altitude.
Okay. How do you get your indicated airspeed?
That's what's showing on your airspeed indicator.
Okay. And then after your indicated airspeed, you have your calibrated. I'll just get you there. So what is that taking into account for?
That's taking into account errors.
Errors, yes,
So
there are errors. What kind of errors?
Instrumentation errors, like if there's, yeah.
Okay. And then after calibrated, you have true.
Mm-hmm.
So what's true airspeed corrected for?
Temperature, pressure,
okay.
Atmospheric conditions.
Okay. And, all right, I think you would get the next one. With performance and limitations, a big thing that they talk about is your CG and how that changes based off of if you have a forward or aft CG. So how does the performance of the plane change with a forward versus an aft CG?
If you have a forward CG, it's going to have a nose down tendency, so that's better for stall recovery. Because when you break a stall, you want to kind of have the nose be down. But that's better longitudinal stability. But then conversely, the CG is forward. So that means that your tail is going to be exerting a larger downward force because the arm is longer. So you have to fly at a higher angle of attack in order to combat that added downward force. So that means you're flying at a higher angle of attack. So you're going to have a higher stall speed. And then, since you're generating more lift because of that high angle of attack, you're also generating more drag. So that's going to reduce your cruise speed, and cruise efficiency. And then it's basically the exact opposite for aft CG. You have a lower stall speed and let me get that right? Yeah. Lower stall speed, higher cruise speed, and then worse stall recovery, like poor stall recovery because it has a nose up tendency. So you need more control input in order to recover from that stall.
Okay. And then what about fuel burn?
It's going to be, that goes into the cruise efficiency. So for aft CG, you'll have better fuel burn rate as opposed to the forward, which will have a worse cruise efficiency and a higher fuel burn rate.
Okay. You might already know, but you're talking about like the angle of attack a lot. So when you have a forward versus an aft CG, you're saying the forward CG puts, which one is closer to the stall?
Forward.
It's closer to stall. Okay. Do you know what just give me in your words, what is the angle of attack?
It's the angle that where the relative wind meets the airfoil.
Okay. And then with lift, how would you just kind of basically describe to somebody how lift is created?
I would say that there's two major principles that kind of define how lift is created. That's Bernoulli's principle and Newton's third law. And Bernoulli basically just says that we have an object moving through a fluid, if the fluid is moving at a high velocity or a high speed, that creates an area of low pressure. And then conversely, the lower the speed, the higher the pressure. So in the case of an airfoil, the air on top of the airfoil is moving faster. So that creates a low pressure area. And then the area on the bottom is moving slower. So that creates a high pressure area. So then there's this lift differential with a net upward force. So that contributes to the lift. But then there's also Newton's third law, which says for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so when you're flying through the air, your wing is pushing down on the air. And then the equal and opposite reaction is that the air is pushing up on the wing.
Okay. So what causes the change in velocity?
You mean like why does it go faster on top and slower on the bottom?
Sure. Yeah. Bernoulli's principle and applied to planes.
Well, the fluid is the air. So you're measuring I'm not sure exactly what the question is, I'm not really sure how to answer the question, but I can tell you that the air moves faster over the top of the plane because as it comes over the plane, it has its velocity there, right? As it comes off of the plane, there's these vortices that happen. So there's like a rotational velocity that ends up moving in the opposite direction underneath the wing. So then the bottom of the wing has a velocity vector in one direction and an opposing velocity vector. So that slows it down because they subtract from each other. So then the top has its, let's just say its standard velocity or whatever, and then the bottom has a combination of the positive and negative velocity vectors, and so that's why it flows slower on the bottom.
All right, let's jump into systems. So what are the primary and secondary flight controls?
Primary are our ailerons, elevator, and rudder, and then our secondary are going to be our flaps and trim.
Okay, and then I'm not familiar with, what kind of plane are you flying?
I fly a Cessna 172 S model.
Okay, what kind of engine do you guys have?
We have a Lycoming, it's fuel injected, 4 cylinders. They're horizontally opposed. It's air cooled, naturally aspirated. It's direct drive. Those are the main components of it.
You guys don't have to deal with a carburetor?
No, thank God. But I do think I'm going to be switching to an Archer for IFR, so I'm going to have to relearn a few things.
The carburetor is fun. Okay, so I can't ask you any carburetor questions. So I think you're doing very well so far, so I feel stupid asking you dumb questions. Or not dumb, but just
okay.
it's
a good confidence boost for me to
really
get
easy questions. What's your prop made out of?
Aluminum alloy.
Okay. And typically props are twisted. Why are they twisted?
Yes. Okay, so this is because it's basically to ensure that there's uniform thrust being created across the entire propeller so that it's as efficient as possible. Mm-hmm. So with that rotation of the prop, it's kind of this is what I brought up earlier with the Coriolis effect, and I completely booped that answer, but with the root moves slower than the tip because the tip has to travel a farther distance in the same amount of time. So that creates unequal thrust. So then we twist the propeller blade so that the angle of attack at the root is higher than at the tip. So it maintains that uniform thrust.
Mm-hmm. When we're talking about like the 4 stages of, I'm starting to also lose my words now, but when we're talking about how the engine works, how would you describe to somebody if you put the key in the, are you push to start or?
No, we have
a key. Okay, so you put the key in the ignition. How does the plane turn on, essentially?
Okay. Yeah, so, well, first you have to have the battery turned on. You have to have the master battery turned on, so that engages the starter system. And then when you turn the key to the start position, that pushes out, there's a little flywheel that turns the crankshaft, the thing that's connected to the propeller. And when the crankshaft starts turning, that allows the magnetos to spin. So there's 2 magnetos, and they're magnets. And so when they spin, they create an electromagnetic current. And then that current is what ignites the spark plugs, or it sends a current to the spark plugs, which then ignites the fuel air mixture. And then the fuel air mixture is what allows the engine to run. It starts that 4-stroke cycle, and then your plane's on.
Okay. Well, why do we've got 2 mags, right? Why do we have 2 mags?
That's for redundancy, in case one of them fails.
Okay. And then how many cylinders do you guys have?
We have 4 cylinders.
You 4? Okay. How many do you guys... So when we're talking about the stages of the engine, what are like the 4 stages?
You've got your intake, where the air gets intaken. You've got your compression. You've got combustion, and then you've got exhaust.
Okay. So how many spark plugs do you guys have?
We have 8 spark plugs.
Okay. And then just kind of give a brief description of what happens during those stages.
So in the intake portion, you have air being brought in through the air intake. I forget what it's called, but through the air intake. And then you have that's mixing with your fuel air mixture. And in the cylinder, there's these pistons, and that's what's causing so when the intake comes in, that stuff comes in and mixes together. Then you have the compression, which is the piston squeezing, and that pressure it compresses so that when the spark plug ignites that fuel air mixture, this like kinetic energy gets created with the combustion. So the piston that's being compressed moves out, and then there's kinetic energy, and it keeps the cycle running. And then after it burns, the combustion process happens, then all of that air gets put out through the exhaust.
What about like the pitot-static system? How does that work, and where does the information from that come from?
So the pitot-static system is responsible for the airspeed indicator, the altitude indicator, and the vertical speed indicator, and it is comprised of a pitot tube and a static port, which is on the side of the plane. And it works by the pitot tube takes in ram air, so like impact air, and then the static port takes just like a reading of the static pressure, and then those combine, and the airspeed indicator takes in both of those readings, and then the altitude and the vertical speed indicators just take the static port reading.
Okay. That's pretty good for private pilot. And then for the vacuum system, what instruments are associated under that? And do you guys have a vacuum system? No vacuum system?
We do. We do have a vacuum system.
Is it just not working? Is it operating?
No,
it's not working?
It
no.
is.
It is working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it controls it provides suction for the gyroscopes that power the attitude and heading indicators. So, yeah, the vacuum system provides like the suction, the airflow required to get the gyros spinning.
Okay. What kind of vacuum system is it?
Oh, it's engine driven.
Okay. And I forgot to ask you this before, but I'm remembering now. What are things that you have to worry about? What can go wrong with the combustion process?
Detonation. So, like, if there's an excessively excessively, let me think about it. When it gets too hot and it just explodes rather than like combusting nicely, that's detonation, and that happens when the temperatures get too hot. It's because something with the fuel air mixture. I want to say too lean of a mixture.
Okay. What about the other thing that can happen?
Other thing is pre-ignition, which is basically when it ignites and explodes before it's supposed to. Like, it happens before, it's when it ignites before it's supposed to in the process, but I couldn't remember what exactly, like why that would happen. So I said I was going to review that one.
Okay. And then there's another, I'll just give you a little clue. What about carbon deposits?
Okay. Carbon deposits. Oh, yeah. Okay. I feel like I just learned this.
Have you ever tried to do your mag check and it's really rough?
No. Unfortunately,
you don't have that.
On very smoothly.
You don't have that. It'll maybe one day. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys are got something better going on than I do. What about the difference between de-icing and anti-icing?
We don't have any de-icing. Our only anti-icing would be the pitot heat from the pitot tube.
Okay. The basic description behind anti-icing and de-icing.
Okay, anti-icing would be like just preventing icing before it occurs, and then de-icing would be getting rid of the icing after it's already started to accumulate.
Okay. What kind of oil sump system do you guys have? Wet or dry?
I don't know what the difference is. I don't know.
What kind of oil do you guys have?
Oh, it's like 15. I can't remember.
It's something. What about fuel? What kinds of fuel can you put in the plane?
We can put in 100 low lead or I think 80. 80 is the other one that we can put in.
Can you put in 100?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then as far as hydraulics go, what kind of hydraulics do you guys have? And where are they located?
Okay, we just have our hydraulically actuated in our brakes. They're like a disc type brake. The strut. Oh, we have a air oil like oleo strut. So I think that would be considered hydraulic. A hydraulic system. Yeah.
Sometimes they're hydraulic, sometimes they're not.
Okay. I'm fairly certain that it is because we do check for the red hydraulic fluid. Okay.
I think the only thing maybe I would ask you is for electrical, just give me some things off of the primary.
Like essential versus primary? Okay. So on the essential bus, we've got the ADC, the AHRS for our G1000.
Do you know what that stands for?
Yeah. ADC is an air data computer, and then the AHRS is the attitude heading reference system. Okay. So yeah, those are two big things on the essential bus. We also have like our engine airframe unit and our nav1 and com1. And then on the primary bus, we've got flaps, our fuel pump, some lights. Are your flaps electric or is it they're electric? Do you know where the motor is? I don't. Okay, that's something to ask your CFI. That's a fun one. It's in a certain place for a certain reason. I forgot to ask you about the mag compass, but I guess you won't get asked about that. For human, was there one more? I don't think I asked you about the turn coordinator. Is that operated based off of how is that associated with the vacuum system? That one is not vacuum powered. It's electric. Okay, do we know why it's electric? Well, the gyro is different. It's electric. I feel like I just reviewed this and I can't remember. Electrical, why is it not? It's mounted at an angle. It can sense both horizontal and vertical roll, but why is it electric? I don't know. I don't know why it's electric.
Yeah, once you won't forget it if you look at that again. I didn't ask you about just like the two basic principles for gyros.
Rigidity in space. Once a gyro is spinning, it has a tendency to just stay fixed in space. So like that's kind of how the attitude and heading indicators work. Like the aircraft can roll around the gyro, but it stays fixed in place. So we can have the horizontal or the horizon bar mounted to the gyro. That stays our fixed as our reference. And then, so that's rigidity in space. And then the other concept is precession, which is just like when a force is applied on a gyro, it's actually felt 90 degrees in the direction of the rotation.
Okay. Do you guys have a mag compass?
We have a magnetometer.
Where does that live inside of the plane?
That's in the G1000 system.
Okay.
Well, the magnetometer physically it's in the wing.
Well, the mag compass and the magnetometer is two completely separate things.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. The magnetic compass is just mounted on top of the...
Okay, so you do have one. Do you know about the errors for that?
Yeah, like the turning errors.
So, yeah. Well, like, do you know the acronym for the mag compass?
Is it UNOS and ANDS? Is that...
That's part of it.
Okay. I'm not sure what the other thing... I mean, it could be like...
So, the first one is deviation. First one's deviation, right? Do you know about that?
Yeah. I think that's due to the interference of like other magnetic fields from the electronics and things like that.
Okay, that's one. And then you get those errors on what? What do you get those errors from? Or like, how do you account for the errors?
There's a compass card.
Okay. So deviation's the first one. Variation is the next one.
Variation. So that's going to be like the difference between true north and magnetic north.
Okay, good. And then why are those in two different places?
Why are magnetic variation and compass deviation in two different places?
No, why? You said there's magnetic and true north, right? Why are those in two different places?
Oh, gotcha. True north is like the geographic north on the map, so it's like the North Pole, and then the magnetic north is in relation to the Earth's magnetic field, which is like constantly changing.
Okay. And then, do you know about magnetic dip?
I don't think so. Wait. Oh, that's what causes the turning errors, right?
So there's a acronym I'm kind of going off of in my head. It's called DVMONA.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Not sure. Deviation, variation, magnetic dip, oscillation, northerly turning errors, acceleration, deceleration.
I haven't heard of that one.
Okay.
DVMONA.
And then I think the last thing is human factors. What are the different kinds of hypoxia?
Okay, we've got hypoxic, hypemic, histotoxic, and stagnant.
Okay, and what is the difference between histotoxic and hypemic?
Hypemic is when there's not enough blood available for the oxygen to be transport the oxygen to the brain. So like maybe you have a blood disorder of some sort, like anemia, or maybe you have a cut and you're bleeding a lot and you're losing hemoglobin, or maybe you have carbon monoxide poisoning, and that's like latched onto your hemoglobin and preventing it from being transporting oxygen to the blood, or to the brain, sorry. And then histotoxic is more so when the oxygen is available to be transported by the blood, but the cells there's toxins that are kind of blocking the blood or the oxygen from being delivered. So that's usually when you have something like drugs or alcohol in your system, and that's preventing the blood from being used by the cells.
Okay. Hyperventilation, I'm going to skip that. Middle ear and sinus problems. So why do some people have problems with their ears at altitude?
That's going to be, well, they're not able to equalize the pressure. So something's wrong with, there's like a eustachian tube or something, like they're just not able to equalize the pressure.
Okay. Do you know how the eustachian tube works?
I can look it up in the AIM.
Okay. For carbon monoxide poisoning, why is that dangerous?
Oh, well, it's super dangerous because it blocks the blood from delivering oxygen to the brain, so it can cause it causes hypemic hypoxia, which can cause things like dizziness, numbness, headaches, impaired vision, cyanosis, like all kinds of bad things that can affect your ability to fly a plane safely.
Okay, so if you were to get carbon monoxide poisoning, what do you do? If you think that you have it, what do you do?
Okay, first thing I'll do is make sure that I turn off the cabin heat, close the vents, and then open the fresh air vents and potentially the window. And then I'm going to just try to land as soon as possible.
Thing that you're afraid is going to happen to you if you have it?
Loss of consciousness.
Probably, yeah. What's the difference between stress and fatigue?
Stress? Well, there's a couple different types of stress. You could have acute stress, which is just like temporary, kind of in the moment, like a reaction to a stressful event, but it's not ongoing. And then chronic stress, which is the worst of the two, can cause things like weakness. Well, I mean, stress is like your reaction to events in your life, but fatigue is like specific to how much rest you're getting.
Okay, and then
similar symptoms, but yeah.
And then for acute and chronic fatigue, what do you do about those?
Well, you ground yourself. Don't fly if you have any sort of fatigue going on. Yeah, for chronic issues, you probably want to see an AME.
So how do you solve chronic fatigue?
I would consult with my AME.
Sure.
Get a
Okay.
plan.
How do you tell the difference between acute and chronic?
I guess, like, taking stock of what's going on in your life, like, what kinds of things are happening, like, is this, I don't know, just like analyzing the situation, and then analyzing your symptoms too. Usually acute is more of just like a temporary, like, decreased reaction time or like tunnel vision, versus chronic, which has like more physical implications. Okay.
For optical illusions, can you run me through some of those?
Okay. So ice flags. I'll run you through which one do I want to do. Somatographic, which is when I think this one is the acceleration one. So like when you're on takeoff and you're accelerating, you get pushed back in your seat, and so you have the tendency to feel like you're climbing. So you might push the nose down to try to level yourself out, and cause loss of altitude.
Okay. And then what are some other ones?
You've got false horizon. So that's typically like at night when you are looking at maybe like a cloud or a star or something that looks like the horizon. And so you're moving to level yourself with that, but it's not the right horizon. So you could end up like falling or putting yourself into a spin.
Okay. So you brought up somatographic, but what about like the elevator one?
Elevator, that is when is that one? I don't know. I think I have to look it up in the AIM.
Okay.
Pretty sure we have that here.
Saying you can have illusions in different kinds of ways. So what's the name of the ones you can see versus the ones you can feel?
Like spatial disorientation versus...
There's a name for illusions that
I'm
you
not
can...
sure.
Yeah, there's a name for illusions you can feel because it's like a different part of your ear versus the ones you can see.
Oh, I don't know. inner ear versus visual. I don't know.
Yeah. There's so like what are like some illusions that are like feeling based?
That would be like the one, like the somatographic.
Yeah.
Or like what's another one? Elevator. I'm pretty sure that's another one. Or like the leans.
The leans work.
The leans?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be when you abruptly correct a banked attitude that's been entered too slowly. Yeah, so it's stimulating the motion sensing system in the inner ear. Yeah, that creates the illusion of banking in the opposite direction.
Okay, so how does the Coriolis one work?
That is when you abruptly move your head when you're in a prolonged constant state turn, and that ceases stimulating the motion sensing system. So that creates the illusion of rotation or movement in the opposite direction.
And then there's another one I could talk about, like the graveyard spiral, or what happens like when you're looking into a light and you move your head.
The light one is autokinesis. Mm-hmm. That's when you're looking at a light and it appears to start moving.
Mm-hmm. I would brush up on the illusions and like what causes them. And then I think the last thing we'll get into is two things. One of them is oxygen, and then one of them is scuba diving. Mm-hmm. So what about some oxygen regulations?
Okay, so when you're flying above 12,500 feet for more than 30 minutes, the crew needs to be using supplemental oxygen. And then once you're past 14,000 feet and below 15,000 feet, the crew needs to have supplemental oxygen for the entire duration of the flight. And then above 15,000 feet, that's when everybody on board, the crew needs to have it still for the entire duration, and then everybody on board needs to be offered supplemental oxygen.
Okay. And then when we're talking about scuba diving, do you remember the depths, how that works?
I always just say, like, to be conservative, wait 24 hours. I know there's an instance where you could wait 12 hours, depending on like if it's a controlled versus uncontrolled descent, and like how many feet you're going to be up in the air. But I just say 24 hours to be conservative, and then if I really need to, for whatever reason, I can look in the AIM.
And do you know the difference between like a controlled or uncontrolled, or what those hour requirements or altitudes are?
I could look it up in the AIM, and then I haven't memorized it. I just use the conservative of 24 hours. Okay. And then if I need to look up the specifics, I can do that. Okay.
That's something I would look into, memorizing that. And
not a big scuba diver.
Yeah, me neither. You are in California though, so that I think you have more scuba diving potential than I do.
That's true.
Okay. Drugs and alcohol. This one's pretty standard. For alcohol, what are the rules on that?
You need to have 8 hours before or after your last drink, and between the time that you are behind the controls of the aircraft, and you can't fly if you have greater than a blood alcohol content of more than 0.04. And then there's, a rule about carrying passengers that are inebriated. It's only for medical emergencies.
Okay. And what's the other caveat for alcohol? So, like, let's say you're abiding by the rules, right? But what else would keep you from flying?
Oh, if you're hungover, or like you're still feeling the effects, like the after effects of alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about drugs? How do you find out what kind of things you can and can't take?
The FAA has a database of like approved over-the-counter medications, but that's like, I guess, the legal list. But I feel like everybody should just not risk taking an unfamiliar drug that they've never taken before and then go operate an aircraft. Like, you should know the symptoms or the side effects, know how it affects you, double check on the FAA website, and then also just like if you're not sure, talk to your AME.
Okay. For the so do you have some examples for things that are approved versus things that aren't approved?
No, I'm
Okay.
look at the list.
Okay, hang on. Sorry, you're not done. There's one more thing I want to ask you. I just looked at this and saw it again. For what is ADM?
That's aeronautical decision making.
Okay, so what is it though?
It's basically like it's a systematic means of making decisions. So like when you're kind of giving yourself some guidelines or some like checklists and things that you can follow when you're in a situation to help you make the best decision possible so that you have the most information and can make an informed decision in a potentially like a stressful situation. That's kind of what it means, or how I would apply it, I guess.
Yep. Okay. All right, now we're done.
Okay, cool.
How do you feel?
I feel like that was good, and like I really liked the way that your questions were very ambiguous, and I feel like that's good because I've heard that that's how DPEs are, and that's how check rides tend to be, and like they'll make you question yourself. And I think some of the practice that I've had has been a little bit more straightforward, where like some of the questions and answers are a little bit more prescribed. So that definitely helps to get me thinking and like really logically thinking versus just leveraging whatever I've memorized. I have a lot of notes on things that I could probably dig into and know more about, like not as surface level on some of the things. That's what I feel.
How do your check rides usually go where you're at? Are they with in-house people, or are they not in-house, but do they have do you have to go find your own DPE, or do they have?
No, they have a list of people. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're all 61, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. How's your training been so far?
It's been good. I feel like it's people keep saying like, wow, because me and a couple other people started at the very same day, and we study together a lot, and like the other people at the school are like, oh wow, you guys are flying through this. So that makes me nervous a little bit, because I'm like, where are the holes? Like I know that I don't know everything, and so I like that I'm moving through it quickly, but it makes me a little nervous that I'm going to get to the check ride and there's going to be like things that I just haven't heard of before, or that I think in terms of my training, how I feel about it, I know that there's things that I keep learning after the fact, where like all my grounds are done. I've got maybe 2 to 3 flights left and I'm still learning things. That makes me a little nervous.
Yeah.
So,
I definitely.
I'm just trying to do as much self-study.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good. How do you think you did?
I generally think I did good, but I think some areas are a lot stronger than others, which I know that. I know like I'm pretty good at aerodynamics, and then my weaknesses are probably like weather for sure. And I think generally I did good, but then on surface level, but then there's a few areas I feel like I could definitely be a lot stronger in, especially weather.
Yeah, I would probably, let me look at the ACS and just kind of like tell you what I was thinking.
Okay.
Pilot qualifications, I don't see any major things there. I would maybe look at, I would look basic med. I would go back to basic med and medical certificates, as far as like what you can do with different levels of them. And airworthiness, I think, was pretty fine. The weather, there were a couple things in weather. I would definitely go back to the airmet, sigmet, convective sigmet things and the specifics for all of those, because you had a broad overview, but there were some things there that like specific line items for each of those things. I didn't go into airmets, and then going over like the chart information, we kind of chose not to go through, but I didn't get to look at that. But there was some weather stuff. Cross-country flight planning, there wasn't too much there. Airspace, my brain kind of went, I wasn't really finding anything super interesting for airspace, but I don't think that was too bad, but the more things that you can kind of consume with Airspace of all the tiny little nuances of things, not knowing what the MEF was pretty major.
MEF?
Yeah, the blue number in bold. Elevation figure.
I mean, so how is it? What exactly? Can you tell me like what it is?
Yeah. Yeah. So with that one, what they do is in each quadrant, there's one of those big like bold blue numbers in each quadrant, and they take the highest obstacle. So it's a maximum elevation figure in that area. So they'll take the highest obstacle in something, whatever it is. So like if you're looking at something that's 400 feet, the highest obstacle in that area has to be something that's 200 feet. So like let's say the highest obstacle is like 230 feet. What they'll do is they'll take that 230, they'll round it to the nearest next 100th number, and then they'll add 100 on top of that. So if you look at something that if the MEF is a 1-6, you know the highest obstacle has to be 14 something, rounded to 15, and then add 100.
Okay. So what they're actually putting on the sectional is the max elevation of that obstacle, or is it?
So they're taking the highest obstacle in that area, they're rounding that to 100, one more 100. So if like let's say the number's 14, right? The highest obstacle is probably 1,200 and something. 1,230, okay. Right? And then
so they're displaying the conservative number, like the higher number.
Yeah, the highest obstacle is not what it says it is. There's wiggle room in between that. So they round whatever the obstacle up is to 100. I can pull up SkyVector and show you.
Okay. That makes sense.
But real quick, so I can end the video. Overall, I think you're doing very well. This was very good. Yeah, somebody's doing good things with you.
That's awesome. Oh,
yeah,
wow, that's
yeah,
really cool.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I will stop recording this now. But thank you for watching, the people of YouTube.